Hey you guys, what's up? I aimed at a little mechanic video for y'all in a minute, so I'm gonna drop one right here for y'all. Hope y'all appreciate it. You're cutting into my personal YouTube video time where I watch and listen to other videos. Been listening to a lot of FFL videos lately. If you don't know what that is, ask me in the comments. I'll be glad to tell you more. Anyways, let's get on with this video. We're underneath the 2007 Chevy Trailblazer. This thing's been a pain in my butt, and I work on it little by little every time I get chance from not working on other customers' cars, right? Got to pay the bills first, and then late at night I work on this inch by inch. Anything's a cinch, right? Slow progress better than no progress. But this thing has fought me. Let me explain. We replaced the engine, and I'll get up and I'll show you the engine in a minute, right? But we replaced the engine, and obviously it has to detach from the transmission. So what you're looking at underneath is the transmission, right? And I'm going to show you what it takes to get the bolts out of the bottom of the transmission and the top. The bottom one's easy peasy, right? I already got those in, and I already got the engine attached to it. And there's the torque converter bolts. And to get to the torque converter bolt, you have to go through here. In here, in this hole, in this tiny little hole. I'm going to shine the camera in there. You see that bolt right there? And that's what you got to get to. A tiny little space. The rack has to be lined up perfectly with that bolt. Spin it over the engine from the front of the crank pulley. Spin it, and then tighten it there. So I've already done that. The torque converter's spinning. I checked it through the hole where the starter goes and made sure it was good. I got a bolt here, I got a bolt here. I still got to put my bolts on the sides of the transmission, but you always just want to kind of get everything to snug up and mate together. So my goal was to get the torque converter on, get the bottom to clamp, put this rubber piece back in here, put my little lid back on there, and then focus on the top bolts. I always personally leave the side bolts for last. So the top bolts, you're going to want to remove this cross member. And I'm not working with a car lift. I'm working on jack stands here. Those are those 6 ton? 12 ton. 12 ton from Harbor Freight. You can barely see it, it's dirty, but that's a 12 ton jack stands, Pittsburgh from Harbor Freight. And I don't have them extended up at all. I just have them on the lowest setting because I'm already using a ladder as it is, a little step ladder to work in the front of the engine, but that's high enough. So anyways, there's a crossbar that comes from there to there underneath, and you're going to want to remove that so that the transmission will sag down and give you access to the bolts up top. This is your bar over here, right? And it has all the little bolts that you'll see on the sides, right? On both sides, and it has the 2 long bolts with nuts that come through here. On this side, the exhaust kind of gets in the way of getting through that one. But it's doable. It's a little more friendly to get to because you're gonna have bolts that go through on the bottom here, and then the long ones that go across. So they'll come out of there. The exhaust does kind of get in the way, but with swivel sockets and wrenches, you can make that happen. The pain in the butt is going to be this side over here. This is going to be completely covered. You're not going to have any access to this over here. You see these plugs? These plugs plug to that vacuum pump right there. This is an emissions vacuum pump. Runs off of these vacuum hoses. And that has to come out of the way for you to access that nut on the back side there. This one you can access, that one you can't. I'm turning around, bear with me, y'all. It's not easy to work underneath this car. You gotta spin like a freaking dancer on the dance floor, spinning on your back. So that's your ABS pump and module attached to it. That's the electronic component of it. There's the harness. There's a bolt that will go there. And there's a bolt that will come through here to this bracket here. And if you can see, I got it loose. Well, I didn't need to take it all the way off, but I did need to loosen that bolt there. It's got that hook right there. Excuse me, y'all. Woo! Pollen is crazy right now. So that bolt I had to take out, and I had to jiggle that up and loosen this harness. You see the clamps right there for the harness? To move the harness out of the way and be able to move it and get to the bolt in the back. And you need to be able to pull this bolt all the way out this way. Therefore, you want to be able to move the pump out of the way to slide the bolt out. That's the only reason why I unbolted that. So that's quite the bit of work, right? Just to get those two bolts and these two bolts and get that cross member out so that this transmission will sag and drop down and give us access to the bolts on top. Let me show you those bolts on top. I gotta assume the position. Okay, so bear with me as I'm getting in position here. There's the two bolts, right? The one on the right and the one on the left. Those are your two top bolts right there. And they're 15 millimeters. And then you got some side bolts going on there and a few more down beneath these lines. I don't know if you can see them over here, but you got some other side bolts there. So, you know, you just got to start working these bolts. But to get to these top ones, the only way that you could have access is by letting the transmission drop down like that, right? So you're gonna get that on there, and if you see, that's a 15 on a ratchet, a couple of long extensions coming out to a little small ratchet that I can work by hand, right? Now I will also take this small ratchet off and put the big ratchet on it and put that last bit of torque to make sure it's tight on it. When you're done with all that, you also want to drop this transmission low, because like this bolt right here, I loosened for the simple reason that I had an aluminum bracket that held the harness attachment to it. And then you have all your other lines here that attach and are loose, and some on the other side that run across all this. You want to inspect all that and make sure that's all plugged in. So you can see everything on the side that I was talking about. The bolts underneath, easy to get to. It's those four on the top, starting from that side one to the other side one, and then the two on the top. And just to get to those 4 bolts, you got to disconnect all this, remove the vacuum pump, get those bolts out, drop that support bar, and let the transmission sag. Now you're gonna see this aluminum bracket here, and it holds, it has a bolt here, and it holds the exhaust to the transmission, believe it or not. And it comes over here, right, to these hooks for the exhaust. And there's your muffler, and it runs all the way to the back. That's a big muffler. Look at that muffler, y'all, to get this thing quiet. If you cut this muffler off and put a smaller muffler on here, this thing would sound so much better. But anyways, moving back onto the topic, we have some plugs that we've disconnected for safety reasons. Anytime you're gonna let a transmission sag down, you wanna make sure you disconnect all that for safety reasons. But the exhaust you wanna leave attached. If I didn't leave this attached, the transmission would sag like too harshly. This is the shift cable that's hanging on my chest. We're actually replacing that with a new one, and that's why I've popped it loose already here. I have to disconnect it at the column, under the carpet, under the driver's seat, and run the new shift cable for it. It'll go to here, and it'll attach to this arm for the shifting. But if I didn't leave that attached and I completely disconnected the exhaust to the transmission, this yoke would pitch down a lot more further down, and it would actually put a strain on the output seal to the point where it could probably hurt it. The yoke could hurt the output seal, and you don't want that. This is nice and dry and not leaking, and we want to keep it that way, right? So we want this to sag enough to get to those 4 bolts up top. We don't want it to sag enough to hurt the yoke there, going into the back of the tail of that transmission. So that's something else to keep in mind. Don't go too crazy disconnecting the exhaust from the transmission and everything else. All you want to get is this support bar out from under, and that attaches to your transmission motor mount right here, right? And this motor mount is solid and good, so we won't replace it. We will drop the pan, grind it down, clean it up, put a new filter, put a new gasket, put fresh fluid in it. But other than that, we're not replacing the seal. It looks good. We're not replacing this motor mount. It looks good. We're looking at the U-joints on this drive shaft. They look good. We inspected it running all the way back to the back. It looks good. Everything under here looks pretty good, honestly. So we're not gonna mess around with all that. We're gonna tighten those 4 bolts up real nice. We're gonna make sure all our wiring and lines are all attached. Everything is bolted back up and attached. And then we're gonna go to put this crossbar back in, get the transmission lifted up. Maybe I'm strong enough to do it with one hand so you can see what I'm talking about. Look. You see that movement? That's enough of a sag to get access to the top bolts up there. I'll show you one last time so you can see them. Those are the guys you want to get to. So once you get that done, then you come down and do the 2 there. That's one of the 4 up top you want to do from the top. Everything below this transmission line, easy peasy. And then on this side, it gets a little more uncomfortable because of the exhaust, but you can still access that one there. And then there's one more. There's that one there and one more above it there. So you'll get those 2 there. These 2 here, plus, and then it's the 4 up top. So yeah, once you got that, then your transmission is completely bolted in. Then you can put your cross member bar back, right? your support bar back, attach it to your motor mounts. When you're putting that back, guys, make sure that you hand thread everything in. And I put lube on all this because it looks rusty, crusty, right? So we'll lube all this up real nice and hand tighten them down. And you want everything to be hand tight but finger loose on every nut and bolt. The ones that go through, the ones that come down on bottom, the ones for the motor mount, all the ones over here, the ones that go through. You don't want nothing to have its final tightening down. And you're going to want to have a jack under the transmission with a piece of wood. And then finally, once everything is gone through and has the bolt and the nut on the opposite side, and everything, the thread felt good on it by hand, nothing was cross-threaded, then and only then do you go and give it the last tightening that you're going to give it. Once all that's tight, then I would start by reconnecting the bolts for the ABS system, and then I would move forward to reinstalling the emissions pump, vacuum pump, assist pump, whatever they call it, back over here and plumbing all that back in. I'm gonna hold off on actually plumbing that in after I put the bar, because I'm still running a brand new shift cable that I'm waiting to arrive on Amazon Prime. This is the shift cable that's on it, and you can see where it broke. If this phone would ever autofocus on its own for once in life. See where it broke? So that snapped off when I went to pull it off of the shift lever. So it grabs onto here and you go to pop it off and it snapped on me. It's brittle, it's plastic, it's been on there since 2007, and it just said, fudge you, Danny, I'm gonna break on you. So it broke, and it is what it is. We'll put a new shift cable on it. It's what happens sometimes. Be prepared for stuff like that to happen when you're working on cars. I mean, you could be as careful and as delicate as you want. These things are plastic, and plastic over time with heat gets brittle and decides to say, forget you, I've seen better days. So that'll clip in here with a clip, and then the piece that goes from here to there is what broke off, and I have it over there. But yeah, and that'll clip onto that, and when you pull the shift lever up there, it'll pull the metal shift lever here and shift the gears in the transmission. So I'm waiting on that to arrive, so we won't put the emissions pump back in it, because it gives us a lot of free real estate to work on that shift cable that I'm gonna have to take off and plumb through there. Can I do it with the vacuum pump on? Yeah, but it'll be more uncomfortable. I'm gonna work a lot more comfortable putting that shift cable in if I hold off on putting that on. So I'm waiting for that to arrive. Once I've done that, I'm pretty much done under here. Then I move up top to the top engine, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Here's some of the tools and other bolts, extra extensions, swivel sockets, yada yada, to get under here. Under here, you're mainly going to use a 13 and a 15 under there. You'll use an 18 for a few of the bigger bolts. Yeah, but mainly 13 and 15. Over here, I still have to put the exhaust manifold on it, and I'm holding off on that. And I tried to test start it with that starter that was on it, and the starter's not working right, so I had to order a new starter, and I'm waiting for the new starter to arrive. So after the new starter arrives, put that in, then I put the intake manifold on. I got all brand new coils and everything else, spark plugs and everything else. All this stuff up here, it looks like it's a lot of work, and I'm not gonna say it's not, but it all gets put together quick. Like, other than waiting for that starter and waiting for that shift cable, which are the parts that I'm waiting for that are holding me up, once I get everything on the bottom done, as far as the cross member bar and all the transmission bolts, it'll just be plumb that starter in. I'll put the shift cable in it. I'll be completely done under there. Then it's plumb the starter in it, put the intake on, put the exhaust manifold on, and all your accessories. Put the radiator, AC condenser, pop your headlights in it, put your bumper back on it. It's really not a lot. It's remembering where a lot of the wiring goes might be a thing when you go to put the intake back on. This motor has a bunch of ground wires and vacuum stuff on the side of the motor under the intake that you want to be absolutely correct on. You don't want to make any mistakes with. You have the heater hose that runs on the back of the head, that bolted to those two top bolts that I showed you on the back of the transmission. And then you have some more vacuum related lines that run across the back of the motor. Those two hoses there. And you want to make sure that all that is plumbed carefully behind the cylinder head. It runs across the back of the cylinder head to the other side of the motor. So yeah, those are a few of the things that that you're going to come across if you're doing a transmission or an engine swap on a 2007 Chevy Trailblazer LT with a 4.2 inline six. Now, for this particular one, it's a 2007, so I'll end the video saying this for those that don't know. This might actually be valuable to you. The 4.2 inline six from General Motors looks identical on the outside, if you see it at the junkyard, to like a 2005, 2004 Trailblazer. It even looks, the coils and a few things are different. To the trained eye, you can catch those things. But as far as the long block, the cylinder head, the bottom end, all that, look, the intake, it looks the same. So you would think I could put a 04 motor in here. I was able to get a 04 motor much cheaper. Much cheaper. It wouldn't have worked. I would have had to swap the computer. I would have had to modify the harness. It's a different cam, different coils. It's a lot of different things going on. So if you have a 2007 and you want to just drop it in and not have to do anything crazy, just plug and play, bolt everything up, you can only use a 2006 or a 2007 motor. It can't be any other motor. It can't even be a 2008. That motor was different too. It can't be a 05. It can't be a 04. It can't be none of those motors. It has to be a 06 or 07. 06 would have worked. It has to be 06 or 07. This is an 07 motor going right back in an 07. So I know I don't have any issues. I paid more money for it, but that's what you do when you want to get it done right. I had bought a motor, brought it here, learned this the hard way, had to return that motor, and then go shopping again and buy this motor. So hopefully you don't have to learn the hard way I did. I'm not the Trailblazer inline six expert, so I'm learning as I go, trial and error. So I'm sparing you the pain of having to go through that if you're shopping for a motor. Transmissions, somebody out there can correct me and school me on if they're all the same or not. I don't know. I would assume they are. Maybe the motors were different, the transmissions were the same. Maybe even the transmissions are different. I don't know. I haven't nerded out or geeked out enough on this with the transmissions. This transmission's fine. I researched the engine and left it at that. I'm thinking if there's anything else I'm missing in the video, but I think I've said what I wanted to say. Anybody else, just drop a comment below. I want to get back to what I was watching on YouTube. These mosquitoes are for real out here tonight. I'm going to let y'all go. They're trying to bite me through my gloves. I had to take my glove off to be able to touch the phone and record. I want to put both gloves on and get back to work. My goal for tonight is get all the transmission bolted up and get that cross member bolted back and bolt up that ABS pump back and then stop. At that point, I would be done underneath, and then I could come back up top and do the exhaust manifold. And then by then, hopefully the starter arrives. I can put the starter on, put the intake on, and then the rest is all downhill, easy peasy from there. I am waiting on a shift cable to go back under there and install that vacuum pump. Like I said, waiting for parts sucks, especially when you want a car out of your garage. But you're better waiting for parts and doing the job right than having to come back later because you rushed it with the same old crappy parts. And parts break is just a part of the game. It doesn't mean you're not careful. Don't beat yourself up. I've been doing this my whole life. I'm super duper careful, and parts still break. It's called plastic, y'all. It happens. So thanks for watching. If you're doing a transmission job on this, take my advice on this video. Drop that bar down, make life easy to where you can access those 2 bolts. Small ratchet by hand, make sure you feel the thread is going in smooth, not cross-threaded to where you're going to strip a bolt in your engine block because you shoved the transmission bolt in crooked. Horrible, you don't want that. Use small ratchet with very little leverage so that you can feel that it's going in smooth without much resistance. Then go back and put a big ratchet on it, more leverage, and tighten it down. You don't need to kill those bolts. There's a torque spec on them. I haven't looked them up yet. But, I mean, you want them tight. You don't want to break them. Take it easy if you're not going to look up the torque spec. I'm going to look it up when I get off the phone, go back under there, and actually put a 3/8 torque stick to it and make sure they're all torqued down the spec. You don't necessarily have to be perfectionist like I am. Just give them a good tightening, but make sure that you're not overdoing it to where you break one of them. Yeah, I think that's it, guys. I'm gonna get back to work. Drop y'all a video here. It's been a while since I dropped one. To the people that are actually watching, thank you for your support. God bless you. Stay safe. I'll catch you on another video, maybe on this car, maybe on another car. Honestly, guys, like, I make these videos when I'm in the mood. YouTube doesn't pay me. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all's support, but like, I don't get paid for these things. These things slow me down more than anything. They don't benefit me in any way. I mainly do it for the few people that actually appreciate it. And at some point, maybe YouTube will start paying me for it. I heard you can monetize after 1,000 subs, but I've been too lazy to even create an AdSense account, so I ain't getting any kind of monetization. I just make the videos out of love, so know that I appreciate y'all watching them, but when I'm in the mood to make them, I make them. When I'm not, I'm not. Just being honest. Catch y'all in the next video. God bless y'all. Peace out.